Good afternoon and welcome to IBA News this Thursday, the 10th of November. I'm Elon Aslan-Levy and we're live from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Netanyahu is preparing to face the first Republican president during his time in office. Netanyahu congratulated Secretary Clinton for her friendship, while also calling his friend Donald Trump to offer congratulations and extend an invitation to visit Israel. The president-elect extended a reciprocal invitation to the White House at the first opportunity. Earlier, Netanyahu released this recorded message.
You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently, and I deeply appreciate it. I look forward to working with you to advance security, prosperity, and peace. Israel is grateful for the broad support it enjoys among the American people, and I'm confident that the two of us, working closely together, will bring the great alliance between our two countries to even greater heights.
Meanwhile, across America, the raw divisions exposed by the presidential race are finding expression in mass demonstrations against President-elect Donald Trump. Thousands of protesters have been flocking to the streets in dozens of states to condemn Donald Trump's election. Carrying flags and anti-Trump signs, many demonstrators disrupted traffic and declared that they refused to accept the dramatic triumph. While most demonstrations were peaceful, there were some clashes between protesters and police. In California, participants threw objects at police in riot gear, burnt trash and even effigies of Donald Trump, and blocked major intersections. Dozens set off fireworks and smashed storefront windows. Police responded with crowd dispersal methods, including tear gas. According to the latest results, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by over 200,000 votes, despite losing the Electoral College count in a repeat of the upset in the Bush-Gore election of the year 2000. Well, in an emotional and gracious concession speech following her shock defeat, former Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton urged Americans to approach the Trump presidency with an open mind and to stand united.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too. And so do tens of millions of Americans who invested their hopes and dreams in this effort. This is painful, and it will be for a long time. But I want you to remember this. Our campaign was never about one person or even one election. It was about the country we love and about building an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted. And to all the women, and especially the young women, who put their faith in this campaign and in me, I want you to know that nothing has made me prouder than to be your champion. So my friends, let us have faith in each other. Let us not grow weary. Let us not lose heart. For there are more seasons to come, and there is more work to do. I am incredibly honored and grateful to have had this chance to represent all of you in this consequential election. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
In a short time from now, US President Barack Obama will host his soon-to-be successor, Donald Trump, in the Oval Office for their first official meeting following the brutal battle for the White House. At 6 p.m. Israel time, the 44th and 45th presidents will meet to begin the smooth transition of power. Addressing disconsolate staff members last night, Obama played down the extraordinary Trump upset, expressing hope for unity and urging his successor to respect America's system of governance and its institutions.
It is no secret that the president-elect and I have some pretty significant differences. But remember, 8 years ago, President Bush and I had some pretty significant differences. So I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect. Now, everybody is sad when their side loses an election. But the day after, we have to remember that we're actually all on one team. This is an intramural scrimmage. We're not Democrats first, we're not Republicans first. We are Americans first. We're patriots first. We all want what's best for this country.
Another message of reconciliation came from House Speaker Paul Ryan, who had previously abandoned the Trump campaign. Ryan described Trump's victory as the most incredible political feat of his lifetime and pledged to bury the hatchet.
There is no doubt our democracy can be very messy, and we do remain a sharply divided country. But now, as we do every 4 years, we have to work to heal the divisions of a long campaign. This needs to be a time of redemption, not a time of recrimination. We all need to rededicate ourselves to making America great and making it a more perfect union.
In the course of Tuesday's election, the Republicans also retained control of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. As results stand, the Republicans lost 2 seats in the Senate, now holding 51. Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, Republican made a net loss of 6 seats and now hold 238. Across Israel, more reactions as the Israeli right eyes an opportunity to advance its agenda. Recalling the Republicans' decision to drop Palestinian statehood from their party agenda, Education Minister Bennett called Trump's victory an opportunity for Israel, too, to immediately retract the notion of a Palestinian state, declaring the era of a Palestinian state is over. Deputy Foreign Minister Tzipi Hotovely and Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat expressed hope and confidence, respectively, that the president-elect would relocate the American embassy to Jerusalem. Extreme right activist Benzi Gopstein of anti-intermarriage group Lehava said Trump's victory makes him want to run for office too. Raising a few eyebrows, Zionist Union co-chair Isaac Herzog lauded American democracy for inducing a new era of change and a replacement of old ruling elites, defying the prophets of the old era. His co-chair, Tzipi Livni, offered more guarded congratulations, saying she hopes Trump will realize the promises of his acceptance speech, not his campaign. Not all was so diplomatic, however. Meretz chairwoman Zahava Galon said Trump won because his campaign of hatred worked, and said we would continue to hear from the hate groups that received legitimacy from his election. President Reuven Rivlin, meanwhile, expressed hope that challenges facing the two countries will be transformed into opportunities.
There are many challenges that lie before you as president at home and around the world. Israel, your greatest ally, stands by you as your friend and partners in turning those challenges into opportunities. I hope together Israelis and Americans can grow our innovation and cooperation, which are the fruits of liberty and equality. God bless you, President.
Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev is in Israel to mark 25 years of diplomatic ties between the two countries. As he was meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, protesters demonstrated outside over the Russian bombings of Syrian civilians. More from IBA's Aria O'Sullivan. We appear to be having some minor technical difficulties. We'll hope to return to that piece in a short moment. Well, back in the studio is Jerusalem Post senior columnist Amotz Asael to discuss all the headlines. Amotz, welcome. The Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia just told Russian press that there were contacts between the Kremlin and the Trump campaign. How is this going to play out in the United States, and how deep was Russian interference in this election?
I think it was shallow, and it couldn't have at all been meaningful or impacted. However,
so you don't buy the FBI's own assessment that the Russians hacked the Democratic emails?
They may have been in contact, but they didn't impact. And I nevertheless suggest that we consider this: the circumstances that caused the Russians to openly and unabashedly back one of the candidates. That alone was extremely extraordinary, and their choice, the very controversial Donald Trump, who seemed at the time to be the underdog, that was even more intriguing. And the reason this happened was that one of the major failures of the outgoing Obama administration's foreign policy was the handling, or mishandling rather, of Russia in their treatment of Ukraine. They did not understand that their backing of Europe's German-led effort to get Ukraine into the European Union was, for the Russians, extremely provocative, and that is what made them see in Obama an enemy.
So the Russian involvement in the election, we're saying, is more from the various cyber attacks on the Democratic email leaks rather than explicit coordination with the Trump campaign?
No, they couldn't have impacted the actual result. No way.
Okay. Prime Minister Netanyahu has called Trump his friend, said they've known each other for very many years, although there doesn't seem to be terribly much publicly available evidence of long ties between the two. How well do they know each other, and how can we expect them to get along?
The acquaintance apparently does hark back decades to Netanyahu's ambassadorship at the United Nations, when Trump was already a well-known and high-profile New York personality. In fact, it would have been odd had they not crossed shoulders back those days, rubbed shoulders. However, that does not mean that the acquaintance is thorough or deep. Having said that, there absolutely is a great room for cooperation between these two men, and in fact, one is at a loss to find much conflict in terms of their agendas.
I mean, it's very difficult to predict what Trump might do, in particular given a record of somewhat inconsistent statements. But if you had to place a bet on Trump's policy towards Israel?
I think that we will see on his part much more emotion than we saw from Obama, and much less pretension. There will be no Cairo speech or anything quite like it from Donald Trump, both in terms of his messianic pretensions, which he simply does not have, and in terms of his agenda, which will evidently be domestic. He made that plain already in his words immediately after winning the election, when he said that he's going to build bridges and roads and deal with American infrastructure. I think he means that. I think this is what he's familiar with also as a businessman, and this is also what will be most wise for him to do politically, because it's consensual and also urgent for America. And if he goes in such a direction, which is very domestic, then all foreign affairs are relegated to the back burner, and within foreign affairs, the Middle East would be even more marginal.
So you're saying that perhaps if he is placing less emphasis on foreign affairs, his foreign policy would be to take a slightly hands-off approach?
Yes, I think so. The way George Bush was until 9/11.
Okay, well, back to American infrastructure. Is this going to be the president who's finally going to move the American embassy to Jerusalem?
That depends on circumstances which I think no one can predict right now. It would happen only under circumstances whereby Trump, for whatever reason, needs to to flex a muscle, to prove something to someone, rather than actually promote a well thought out policy or reach a clear aim. Yes, he made the election promise, but that so many before him have made, and then with great ease ignored those promises. And frankly, that is also the expectation right now here in Jerusalem. No one actually expects this one.
I mean, if the Republicans control both houses of Congress, then what excuse do they have not to go ahead with it?
Well, practicality. In fact, it is the legislators, who might be the brake here on the White House. Should the White House demonstrate such a desire, they might be the ones to put the foot down and say, this makes no sense. This might, in fact, just be provocative and spark unforeseeable results.
Amos, thank you.
Thank you, Alon.
Early this morning in the Palestinian town of Yatta, south of Hebron, IDF forces sealed the bedroom of one of the terrorists involved in Tel Aviv's Sarona market terror attack in June. Forces poured cement into the bedroom of Yunus Ayash Zain, who is accused of planning the attack, supplying the weapons and ammunition to the two cousins who perpetrated it, and hiding the supplies in his home. 4 people were killed and 16 injured in the June attack. Elsewhere, near Ramallah, a Palestinian threw a firebomb at an IDF post. Soldiers fired back, shooting him in the leg. Nearly 20 other suspects were arrested overnight across the West Bank. The Rishon LeZion Magistrates Court today extended by an additional 20 days an injunction barring Netanya Mayor Miriam Fireberg from entering Netanya City Hall. Fireberg is suspected of accepting millions of shekels in bribes in exchange for advancing a series of real estate projects in the coastal city. Since her arrest in mid-September, the Netanya mayor has adamantly denied all charges of wrongdoing. She is currently under house arrest and has not been permitted to enter City Hall for nearly 2 months already. Amid heightened security, Israel's national football team departed a short time ago to Albania to take part in the 2018 Football World Cup qualifier. The match between Israel and Albania, scheduled for this Saturday night, was moved to another venue after 4 suspects affiliated with the Islamic State were arrested for plotting an attack against the Israeli team. The Counter-Terrorism Bureau confirmed that threats to attack the Israeli squad had been received and urged Israeli fans not to travel to the match. The team is being escorted by a large entourage of security personnel. The match will be broadcast live on Saturday night on Israel Television's Channel 1. Back to our earlier report from the meeting between the Prime Minister and Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. Ari O'Sullivan now has this report.
Shortly after landing in the Holy Land last night, Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev rushed straight to the Western Wall, perhaps adding a prayer for the warming ties between Moscow and Jerusalem. The Russian premier is here on a 2-day official visit that sees him meeting with the Israeli leadership and visiting the Volcani Agriculture Institute and the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. During this morning's meeting with President Reuven Rivlin, Medvedev said that Moscow and Jerusalem face joint challenges that required cooperation. Rivlin noted that Russia's role in the Middle East was growing in stature and that his visit was an opportunity to discuss deepening the links between the two countries. Medvedev was meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this afternoon. His visit came as Russian forces were poised to carry out a new round of strikes targeting Syrian rebel forces, with bombers launched from an aircraft carrier fleet in the eastern Mediterranean. Not everyone was happy to see the ties between Jerusalem and Moscow warming. As Medvedev was meeting with Netanyahu, outside his office were protesters demonstrating against Russia's aid to Syrian President Bashar Assad and its vicious crackdown on Syrian rebels.
Syrian Bashar Assad and Putin and Medvedev as Russia are doing mass crimes against humanity. They're trying to kill a revolution which is democratic and legitimate by force of air force and by force of tanks. So we believe anybody who receives Medvedev in this situation and as a friend, as a legitimate person, actually is saying something about what he thinks about these crimes which are being done in Syria and actually is an accomplice in it. We think that Netanyahu's relation with Russia are the wrong ones. We think that any people who have gone through what the Israelis have gone, what Jews have gone, cannot be silent when a whole city and a whole country are being bombed from the air.
Ari O'Sullivan, IBA News.
In financial news, stock markets around the world have shown a quick recovery from the initial so-called Trump slump they experienced Wednesday, immediately following the announcement of Trump's victory. The stock exchange is on the rise, and the shekel is mixed. And in weather, tomorrow should be partly cloudy with an additional drop in temperatures. On Saturday, temperatures will rise again with strong northerly winds along the coast come the afternoon. And that's all for today. Ari O'Sullivan will be back in this seat on Sunday with the latest news. Until then, it's a good evening and Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem.